chat into this. How is your day going so far? Are you having a good day?
Yeah, yeah, busy, productive. I just got off a meeting with our team, so we're going to, we like to close up on Friday to make sure we have, the weekend good set up and our next week's plans ready to go. So yeah, pretty well. How about you?
Oh, prompt. I'm exhausted, but that's what it's been like. So I see that we are live now. We'll have a couple people start populating here in a second. It always takes a minute, but I'll just get going. I'm here today with Robert People. So happy to have you here. And I just am so appreciative always of candidates who are willing to talk to regular people like me so that we actually have that exchange. I think we've gotten to that point where our representatives are too far away from us and people don't
Mhm.
have that opportunity to speak. So thank you for being here and go ahead and introduce yourself as we get going.
Okay, thanks for having me. My name is Robert People. I'm running for Congress for Florida's District 15. I'm a 21-year retired active duty Army veteran. I'm running because I would like to continue. I have a passion to continue public service. And as you just said, because we're not, the people are not getting that right now. And I want to make sure I use the time that I've served and a lot of what I learned to help change what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And so tell me about your district. Tell me about the campaign, what kind of issues you're having, and what you're seeing from people.
Well, this is District 15, which includes parts of Northeast Tampa. It goes to Lakeland, Plant City. We have Zephyr Hills, Sefner, Brandon, Valrico, Wesley Chapel, Temple Terrace, Lutz, and there's always one. I always forget one, but those are the areas. It basically goes more into more toward more toward I want to say the center of that sort of that area of Florida, and also the it is an R+4 district. So this is the second, I want to say, the second closest um, race as far as the presidential election goes, and I think the Miami area was number one. I might be a little bit off from that, but this is definitely flippable. And right now we're getting a lot of this is it's the last couple races. I want to say was maybe 13-point difference, approximately, just going off memory here. But as far as the campaign's been great. As I said earlier, we just got off with our team. We like to close up on the weekend. At least we have activities on the weekend as well, but we want to we definitely have to make sure we're keeping up with what's happening because it gets so busy that if we don't do that, we'll be all over the place. So
Yeah.
but thanks, as we're being busy, we're making sure they're doing well, keeping me engaged with the community, because that's a major part of this.
Yeah.
None of this matters if we're not connecting with them.
And how many people are in your primary right now?
Right now, there are four of us
Excellent.
total.
And this is one of the things, one of my points of emphasis. I think these primaries are really important. It's important to have a robust primary. In my
Mhm.
district here in Wisconsin, it's Emily Berge and Rebecca Cook. And the advantages, the more people you out there canvassing the district, the more you can get people excited
Mhm.
about coming out to vote. And I mean, there is more interest. I don't know what if you want to talk about your political background and what got you in here and just the excitement because there's never been another primary in my life that I've spent this much effort building a platform, trying to talk to
Mhm.
people, trying to get the word out there. And again, I appreciate you for being here. So, what are your thoughts on those things?
Well, the reason, my military service is a big part of the reason why I joined. And this is from lessons I've learned there, because I joined as an 18-year-old. So for obviously the vast majority of my adulthood, I was, in the Army. And about 4 years in, I would say, is when the first sort of lesson, was planted in my head as far as being part of the problem. Not being not being part of the problem, but the solution. As one of our leaders, when they spoke with us about being junior soldiers who complained a lot about our leadership, and in the military, of course, certain for those who understand, those there's certain up to a certain uh, rank is automatic, but once you cross over from that rank to sergeant, there's a separate promotion board, and that's not automatic. You have to do more to be able to achieve that, and that's when soldiers typically sort of drop. They either finish their enlistment or they don't go further than that. And his point was to say, well, if you have these complaints about your leadership, why not take that extra step? Say, okay, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to see about changing the things that I have such an issue with. And that's what resonated with me. And at that time, this was a few months before 9/11. This was back in that point. And that really set, that got in my head because I was doing that very thing in my unit. Plus, I like to be challenged. I enjoy challenges. My older brother sort of got me into that because he was always beating me and everything. So I always wanted to look for that next challenge of what can I do to be better than I was before. So when he said that, I went back to my unit and I went to my sergeant and I said I would like to go to the promotion board. Long story short, the his him saying for us to be part of the solution and not the problem. When I saw the results of the presidential election, and had no idea what to say to my followers, those who I've had all kinds of conversations with, that came into my head again. And because over the past probably 15 years, Congress is what I've complained the most about. That's why I want to run for this seat because that's where I see being the most effective.
Thank you, and I thank you for your service, and thank you for this additional
Mm,
service of running for Congress. I appreciate that, and
thank you.
I have my complaints about Congress too, and I'm curious. I want to give you a platform here, and I
Okay.
know there's great people in Congress doing good work, but there's a lot of things
Mm.
that make me upset and frustrated. I'd like to hear the things that you want to see changed.
Well, right now, the biggest problem, the biggest issue I'm experiencing or I'm hearing from those I'm speaking with within the district and elsewhere is lack of connection. There's this huge separation between our representatives and the people, and that shouldn't be the case if if they're representatives, right? We are supposed to represent the people. That means we the access should be a little easier. And of course, this is not to misunderstand being busy, but periodic town halls should be taking place. Not people going to, for example, my opponent, the incumbent here, Laurel Lees, who I'm going against, she doesn't have and I'm not, this is not going to be necessarily just attacking her, but legislative aid that can work on any kind of legislation here for anyone who maybe come to our office. And that's not acceptable because there needs to be someone here along with someone in Washington to be able to do that kind of work for the people locally. Otherwise, when people come to the office, when the residents come in there, your constituents, what what kind of help can they get locally? Is it a matter of just waiting for her to show up here, being unclear as far as, well, when will we see some type of resolution or any type of legislation proposed or something to
Mhm.
give them a sense of closure with the issues that they're having, and there is none. So that's probably, I would say, that's probably the biggest issue. Being present, more needs to happen. Obviously, there needs to be better than just existing, but definitely that's a start. If you're not there, the work can't be done. The people don't feel that you are really there with them.
Yeah, and I I appreciate that. My family is an immigrant family, and with all the
Mhm.
things going on right now, it's almost like I don't even know where to start. There's so many things that are terrible right now. But
Mhm.
I live in constant fear, honestly. Just
Yeah.
because of the way my wife looks and the way my kids look. We've got secret police out, and they don't
Mhm.
identify themselves. We don't know who they are. We don't know what their background is. We don't get to really evaluate. I think I have a right, if somebody is policing my community, to know if that person, I think we should have maybe a DNA database to see if that person has done anything wrong. Because I don't like the idea that somebody could come up in body armor and a mask and grab my kids off the street and hold them and detain them, outside of the due process. So I don't know what are your thoughts on that? I just want to appeal to everybody running for office. Can you make me feel safe? Because I don't feel safe in the United States of America right now, and that's what I'd like to see changed.
Well, one of my platforms is to abolish ICE altogether, not play these games of let's defund, let's reform. No, this is a mess right now. This is garbage. We need to get rid of it. We don't need to entertain any more, of letting this happen. When has this ever been acceptable? And even when they give us the explanation of, well, law enforcement, they have to protect themselves. Every other aspect of law enforcement doesn't do that. So why does ICE all of a sudden need to, unless we know they're doing things wrong? And then we see that too. We see at this point, vans pulling up and people being snatched up. That's not this is not, they're not a law enforcement agency, number one. This is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as a lot of us know. And the way it's supposed to work is that law enforcement is supposed to assist them. So ICE should not be arresting anyone, detaining, deporting. ICE is not supposed to do that. I'm sorry, I might be. I'm sorry. I misspoke there. Yes, as far as the deportation when done, obviously properly, that goes through them. But
Humanely.
as far as the law enforcement activities that we're seeing, of course,
Yeah.
almost little to no need for what we're seeing as far as the escalation of the force, different levels of the
Ugh.
escalation of force that we're getting. So nowhere near that. I'm I despise that people like you and your family have to feel that that fear of you just can't you don't want to leave your house. You don't want I mean, I heard yesterday, and this is something that we already knew, but it was reiterated yesterday during one of our local caucus meetings, is that you know immigrants and those with immigrants and their families don't even feel safe calling law enforcement for help because
Mhm.
they don't know if it's going to be twisted into, okay, well, there's an immigrant here, is ICE going to show up, and rather than giving them the help or the emergency services they need, they get taken away. And that's beyond unacceptable. So I'm not someone, Walter, who's going to play with the other side of the aisle. There's no, yeah, when we talk about, for sports fans out there, yeah, we can, let's get along with not fighting, watching baseball, watching football, ketchup and mustard, ketchup or mustard on a hot dog, something like that. Yeah, we don't have to fight for those things. Snatching people off the street, no, there's no negotiating with that. It doesn't happen, especially not by our government. Anything that where they can conceal themselves and hide who they are and no name. I'm against all of it. I will always vote against it. ICE needs to go back to what we've seen in the past. And people often bring that up too. Well, the past administrations, the Democratic administrations, well, they've deported whoever. Yeah, they did it the right way. Due process happened. They weren't kidnapped. They weren't detained. They weren't sent, to these ultimately concentration camps. They were not, the conditions are just, I can't even describe what we've heard a lot of. And you having an immigrant family, you understand this part. I'm sure you've kept up with, okay, you don't want your family to end up there. All that didn't happen before. So my stance is ultimately abolish completely. Start from scratch. We already have not had. It's been more than 40 years since we've had any type of reform to our immigration system anyway. So this is long overdue.
Yeah. Thank you. That is beautiful, beautiful answer. You got my support just from that answer. But let's keep going. And one of the things that I find really upsetting is that it has seemed to me that the Democratic establishment, Washington Democrats, whatever you want to call it, they so often surrender the messaging because people don't realize it's legal to cross the border and apply for asylum within a year. And there's not been from Democratic leadership any response to the lies told by Republicans that incite hatred, that incite violence. They
Mm,
are not rounding up criminals. In fact, ICE is rounding up Christians. Most of the people that come up from South America are
mm,
Christians. The reason they come is because the United States government abducts their president and throws their country into disarray. And
mm.
these are the kind of things that I think Democrats need to start saying. We need to have more powerful messages like that.
Yeah.
And instead, what we get is every time bills come up, all the Republicans vote for it, and then 3 or 4 or 5 Democrats
Yeah.
defect and allow these things to happen. I'm furious about that. I know everybody I talk to is furious about that. So, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts?
That's another part of the lack of presence, the lack of governing the way the people need you to, and you're absent for them. And right now, they're our lifeline, to say the least. Not to be not to fearmonger or anything like that, but Democrats are our lifeline. We need them fighting as much as possible. We understand that the Republicans outnumber us right now, but we need to feel some type of fight from them, not as you just described, where all the Republicans are voting one way and only a few Democrats are there, because then people are going to feel like, well, who's here for us? Who's actually going to fight for what's right? And even if we don't have the numbers necessarily, let's at least feel like we have a fighting chance with those who want to show up. And not only that, but really, I don't even think that's the most accurate way to go about it either, is because we're seeing Republicans resigning. We're seeing them retiring, saying they're not going to run for reelection. We see some pushback, not as much as we would like, but we're seeing it come from the Republican side of the aisle. So it's not such a slam dunk as maybe it once was, where we just shouldn't, the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, shouldn't even bother trying because we don't know who's going. I mean, did anybody have on their bingo card Marjorie Taylor Greene how that was going to turn out? I knew we were sort of headed this way, but she would have been the last person that I would have chosen as to who would be, at the front of this. So I don't think we should be in a place where we don't even, try. We don't make the attempt. And people are becoming, the American public is becoming very, especially Democrats supporters are becoming very aware of when a lot of these establishment Democrats come out and say certain things and then we don't see action following. Because again, that's where we talk about the so-called strongly worded letters because it's spoken in that term because nothing comes after that. So it's like, okay, the strongly worded letter is the way that things stop. No, that's not and something has to be done. We can't just not say anything. Of course, the letter still has to, or the message still has to be put out there, but we have to feel that there's more that's done there.
Yeah. And you touched on some things. One of my resurfacing things that I bring up in all these talks is so many within the Democratic establishment, they say, we want to appeal to moderate Republicans. And I said, well, then run as a Republican. I think if you are a Democrat, it's like at some point we're always kind of left out, right? Appeal to
Yeah.
me. And there is this problem. And I appreciate what you said. Because, yes, once you're there, once people are elected, we have to do what we can with the people that are in office. But at the
Mhm.
same time, if within the Democratic Party, if we bring in people that we feel to be racist or we feel are working against us or are going to betray us, you end up pushing people out of the tent,
Right.
the big tent. And an example I always use is James Carville. And he
Mm.
said things that I feel are openly racist and bigoted and misogynistic. And he is still often held up as like a spokesperson of the Democrats. And I think that drives voters away from our party. And I think having a guy like him in the party causes us to lose elections.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
That's you're now you're riding the fence there, right? I mean, that's what we're and when people this tent we talk about, this big tent that we have where we say everybody is welcome and we do our best to appeal to a lot of especially marginalized communities, those who are neglected largely by the Republican Party. But when we see things like this, yeah, it comes across as, well, why not just run as a Republican then? Because we can't we make the exception because we've gotten so comfortable with Mr. Carvel and so forth. I'm sorry, did I say his name correct? I think
Yeah, James
I
Carville. Yep.
Carvel. Okay, I feel like I mispronounced it there, but we get comfortable and we say, okay, well, the same things we would you know try to destroy the other side for, we make it acceptable here. And again, if he's allowed, well, who else is going to come in and say, okay, well, let's us make our way in here as well. But also we show the people that we're not serious, and if it's a problem, it's a problem across the board. And with a lot of moderates, and that's why I want to make sure I want to make sure that I express I'm running as a progressive, not a moderate, because there's not, there's times to reach across the aisle when it's something that when things are not going to, harm or be catastrophic to the American people, and times to say no, we need to take action that's going to fix these problems and things like that, where he's made racist comments and so forth. That can't ever be acceptable, and we need to be comfortable enough to say he may not be the person we need in that seat. And we can't be, and then let's go to this real quick too, because we also talk about infighting. That's something that we hear a lot of is, oh, well, don't infight, don't disagree, and all this and that. And there needs to be some form of addressing what we're seeing wrong on our side too. That's something else I learned in the military is accountability. It doesn't mean everything needs to be taken public, but how about let's have conversation. Let's not be so quick to say, "Oh, Walter, how dare you say anything about." Let's
Yeah,
not do that. Let's listen to what's being said and say, "You know what? If a Republican did this, what would our response be?" So okay, let's make sure we're keeping ourselves, because we've heard the expression iron sharpens iron, right? So let's keep ourselves we got to hold ourselves accountable too, because the whole idea is, yes, we're running as Democrats, but we're not here to look after just Democrats. We don't want accountability for just Republicans, but not us, because then we're still hurting the American people either way.
absolutely. And the idea of constructive criticism. I
Yeah.
keep saying it. We can't appeal to these old strategies because look where they got us. They got us
Mhm.
here. All this, we need to do something different very clearly. And Robert mentions, he said in my chat here, another Robert, he
Ah,
says we have to stand up for progressive values and principles. And I often feel, yes, the Democratic establishment doesn't have a place for me. Like, I'm told to be quiet. And I
yeah.
would like it if my things, I would like it if we spent money on education so that my kids could go to, could go to school and not be bankrupt for the whole rest of their life. And, schools rather than police, and this for-profit prison stuff.
Mhm.
And it's like all these things, the amount of money we should, based on your background as a veteran, I'd be curious to hear about your talks or what you feel about this conflict in Iran, and the amount of money we're spending on that. They refuse to extend the healthcare subsidies. We're spending enough so we could have paid those subsidies, for 3, 4, 5 years into the future,
Mhm.
just because we decided to just bomb schools and kill little girls. And so,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there?
It's sick. It's maddening and just sickening because of the fact that I've seen a lot of this firsthand during the Iraq War, and it was much. It's much worse now, obviously, with especially the lack of how irresponsible this administration is being. It's clear there's no clear mission, and yes, there's what we call operation security, where there's only so much information they can divulge. But it's clear that even with that, there's no this feels like, not to make light of this, in respect to my brothers and sisters over there, but this is a game to them. This is GI Joes. This is Call of Duty. When you listen to Pete Hegseth as he speak, it's so disrespectful to them. And the language, we shouldn't be hearing how much, or we're going to destroy them, and we're going to make sure they're all dead, and we're going to kill it. Like, let's get some mission discussion here. Let's talk
Yeah,
about, okay, let's our mission is this, however much that can be divulged publicly. And we have a plan. We have, this is what's happened. Not, sort of put your chest out like, yeah, we did this. And let's talk about our service members. Let's give some better
yeah,
respect to them. Let's speak about like you said, I don't recall what the number is, 176, something like that,
yeah,
of the little girls who died. Let's give something to let's say something to respect the innocent people who have nothing to do with whatever we're going after, because they have nothing. They're over there just trying to live. Our issue is with the regime, not the people. And let's start hearing that from our, who are supposed to be our leaders. And again, seeing this myself, and with the spending too, that's just outrageous. I don't know what the number is per day. I believe it was something like $1 billion per day. I may be wrong with that.
mhm,
um but again, you just said it. How what could that be used for, here? And studies have, or I'm sorry, experts have stated that it would actually be less expensive than what's being paid now into, the Medicare for all, if we,
yeah,
adopted that system. But of course, we know corruption at the top is not, at this moment, has not, is not allowing that. So it's terrible to see. And again, service members, I believe another this morning, another four passed away from, I want to say a crash. I'm sorry, I can't recall right this minute, um, but with this happening, let's give some, even in those cases, we're not even getting the sense of, respect for those who lost their lives.
yeah,
And that's the part that, these are not the individuals who are going to go to these families to give their condolences. They're up
yeah,
on the podium, they're showing, their so-called toughness, but a provost marshal somewhere, that's the person who has to go and do this. And then imagine the families, and I've already had people reach out to me on this, the, families with loved ones there, they're terrified, of course, because they, their, sons, daughters, so forth, can't even
yeah,
explain, yeah, there's so much you can say, obviously, but they're totally clueless on what's happening.
yeah. And
It's
and what you
Mhm.
said, I think, is so important, because what we've seen within this administration, but with Republicans in general, a complete lack of respect for human life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we are going to have conflicts, but we do have to always emphasize that these conflicts are with human beings. And like you said, the regime and
Mhm.
these righteous fury, or whatever they called their foolish, that I don't
Mhm.
remember what they called their, and it's just it's so disrespectful. And yeah, the people that so many people have to make sacrifices for these wars, you know, and their family members. And
Mhm.
things like this administration, one of the first things that they did was they purged so many of the qualified people that were in
Yes.
positions. And
Mhm.
once they are removed, you're seeing mistakes made that end up costing more lives. We had that midair collision, immediately upon Hegseth getting involved. And just more and more, we're seeing ships crash into each other. I think we're seeing planes crash together all over the place.
Yeah.
And at what point, I don't even know. It's like I appreciate your respectful demeanor and as you talk about these things, but at the same time, rage is appropriate too because of just this needless loss of life. So, your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. The rage. I'm try. I try to dial it back sometimes because I think on and my videos have a lot more. I guess more on the rage side than what I'm expressing here now. But yeah, rage is absolutely appropriate. And I know there are people out there who want to see that. They feel we're not angry enough, and I agree. We definitely aren't. But also, as someone running for Congress, I have to find that sort of line. Some people I'm not, and let's be honest here, won't they don't will not receive anger from me in the same way as they would someone else. So not to say it's not warranted, but I also want to make sure I'm constructive in my in what I'm saying in my evaluations too, because I don't want to just come off as everything happening is mad. And even though everything, it seems like every few minutes, every time a new news report comes out, that's exactly where we go because it's like, what the hell? Oh my goodness, what is,
Yes.
even my wife sends me things, so she helps out a lot. She sends me things as I'm working. And of course, the first place I want to go is just, I go into the room and I slam them. I'm just like, what the, yeah, we're just talking back and forth about what we're seeing. And then it's like, the people who are angry will receive it well. The people who are terrified may not.
Mhm.
So I need to find sort of again a balance of, okay, the ones who are terrified and they trust me enough to say, okay, you know what, I trust you to maybe,
Yeah.
be another member of Congress, someone who may fix this. Where are we going to go? And I don't want any type of, uplifting, any type of, encouragement to them to become, diluted in anger where that doesn't feel to be a solution in there anywhere to where, okay, they get that I'm mad, but what is he going to do when he's in there? Is he going to
Mhm.
be the person who governs well for us? Is he going to be our voice? Is he going to speak up for us? Or is all we're going to get anger from him with no real action to follow? So that's why I want to make sure, but I don't begrudge anybody for being angry. I'm angry a lot as well.
That was a wonderful response. And I didn't mean it to sound as if I was being critical. I was
No,
actually
no.
trying to compliment you on how
Oh,
well
no
you
worries.
handle
No,
these
no
things.
problem.
Yeah, and you know what? Other topics, a word I want to hear more the Democrats use is billionaire welfare. I mean, we
Mm.
talk often about taxing the rich. All we have to do is stop giving them free money, is one of the
Uh,
things that I wish people would just start saying. And I think
yeah.
that lands pretty well. But go ahead and speak.
Oh no, I agree. Yeah, taxing the rich is absolutely what we need to do. But yeah, to stop giving the money. For example, and I'll use this from a meeting that I attended here in Tampa a couple days ago, where for electric bills, and it's so easy. The simplicity of how it's being given and how the American people are being taxed extra here or extra charges are being placed in these bills and things like that.
Yeah.
It's sickening because it's like, and when they explained it, the representatives who are trying to fight this as well for the city, when they explained it, I thought first thing I said was, that's it. That's all they're doing is just raising the bills, and that's it,
Yeah.
and that money goes to the billionaires essentially. And like you said, that's something that needs to stop. But stop doing that. It's as simple as just saying we have to find a way to stop that from happening. But of course, as you alluded to earlier, when the loyalists are put in place, of course, they're
Uh-huh.
bought obviously. So of course now they're basically in prison to for lack of a better term, but they they own them now. So of course, everything they do, so they can continue getting paid, they have to agree with, and that puts the American people in a serious bind, especially with the electric bills. Yeah, I know throughout the country, but especially here because in Florida, obviously, with the heat, it's a
Oh,
lot. heavier, and the bills are going up way more than they should, and then they're also sticking extra stuff in there. So, as far as stopping giving this extra money to the billionaires, absolutely, 100%, I agree with. Mhm.
Let me pause for a second and just get your webpage so that people can find you, so I can get the link and put it in there. So,
Okay.
what is your webpage?
Webpage is peopleforcongress.com. Peopleforcongress.com.
All right, and people can donate and find you there. I'll
Yes,
put
I
that in
have
the
my
chat.
mhm.
Wonderful. Another thing. I could give you some. We'll go back to that in the end. We'll do our
Okay.
pitch at the end. But another thing I want to talk about, and been really concerned about, it's an ongoing issue, is vote suppression. Right now, the Republicans are engaged in it openly with the Save Act,
Mhm.
and it upsets me too. And again, the lack of response for the Democrats, where they get like, well, we can't be the party of election denial, but the Republicans are even now recounting the 2020 election, and I don't understand why we don't ever get to do any recounts, not
Yeah.
even for counties, especially when there are major questions. And you hear a lot of stories about people confusion at the polls, people being turned away, people getting purged from voter rolls. So, what are your thoughts on vote suppression?
I feel like there's too much emphasis, too much focus on trying to look like the good guys from us. And when it comes to voter suppression, just to address what you said about, we don't want to be the party who, us saying we don't want to be the party that, of election deniers and so forth. Well, we got to look at exactly, how this is going. We see what they're doing. We see all the avenues they're going with, the gerrymandering. We see the Save Act. All that wasn't in place in 2020, or as far as they weren't, we weren't trying to do those things and then they're denying. We know that they were just denying it because they didn't like the fact that they lost the election. There's a lot more substance where from where we're coming from to where we have, if we're so concerned about not looking like election deniers, well, we have evidence. We can say, you know even though, I want to say there were some cases that went through as well where they, tried to sue to get, recounts and things like that, and it didn't go their way. But again, there's no accountability there to say, well, we're not going to fight this because we don't want to look like bad guys here. At this point, it doesn't matter what we look like to them because they're going to still do what they're going to do. So this is one of the instances where I feel like more more fight is needed from us to say, you know what, you're going to think what you think of us anyway. So we're going to push back on this. Um, that, as a matter of fact, here in Florida, the state legislature has passed our version of a Save Act. It may not, I believe, it won't be in effect until after the midterms, but again, these are where, and there are a lot of people here going, to Tallahassee and looking to fight that. So definitely, we're definitely doing that as much as we can, but not the looking like the good guys, the looking like that's not, because then of course you're losing the respect of the American people. You're losing the confidence, also the confidence and trust, because people are starting to wonder now, well, what's in it for you and why are you doing this? And when we see so much happening, it's at a certain point it becomes valid.
Yeah. And another thing I get upset with is because there's become so much of this narrative of blaming voters. You
Yeah.
guys better start getting interested, which to
Mm,
me, that doesn't fit in with the big tent philosophy. You're not
right.
then appealing to people. Plus, when you're disregarding the fact that somebody might have had to wait in line for 12 hours
Hmm.
only to be turned away, only to not have their vote counted, then it adds insult to injury to turn around and complain about those things. I don't like the fact that I don't know what it's like there in Florida, but I mean, is it often the case? Because we have seen institutional failure where
Hmm.
there's not enough ballots, there's not enough polling places, and people are required to wait in line for 10 hours or whatever or more, and people can't afford to do it. And I don't know what things can we do today that help ensure that our vote for everybody has their right to vote protected. I mean, I think that needs to be a fundamental concern of the Democrats.
Well, first of all, we need to stop just blaming voters. With all these measures in place, and we see that, and I apologize, that's a plane going through if you can hear that.
Oh, can't hear it. We're good.
Okay. Um, there, we spoke to someone. As a matter of fact, I was tabling with another candidate here a couple days ago, and a lady walked by, and when we handed a petition to her, she basically said she had given up on voting because there was so much corruption, and to a degree. we get it, we understand it, and we don't understand. We have to be, I think, as best as we can, mindful of where people are too. We talk about meeting people where they are. That's something we as Democrats like to say also. But as you said, that's not showing that that's what we're doing when our first impulse is to blame, especially now since the Republicans are panicking and they're going to do everything they can. They see the writing on the wall. They see the ship sinking. So they're not going to go away quietly. So especially this administration, they're going to they're going to do whatever they can to see what sticks. And it may be certain things may never see the light of day, but other things such as this, we need to make sure we are giving confidence, we are giving encouragement, we are, helping, helping people feel good about voting. Their vote counts, obviously, but not going into a place of blame, because that's not helping. That's not help. That's hurting us more than anything else. If people are not voting in the numbers, especially when we're talking about the presidential election, there's a reason for it, obviously. And our answer can't be to nag at them about it. It's frustrating because we say, okay, well, so many didn't vote that if only a certain percentage did, we'd have a completely different outcome. But we also got to say, okay, well, beating them down is not going to say, oh, okay, I'll vote then. They'll just say, you know what? The
Yeah.
Democrats who say they were this, well, now look at how they've been. You know what? I made the right decision in not voting. And that's one of the ones where I kind of swallow my pride too with it, because yes, that's what you want to say initially, but we need to be more. We have the tent, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about meeting people where they are, let's say, where
Yeah.
they want to feel like their vote makes a difference. They want to feel like they have people there that's going to, understand where they're coming from, truly meeting them and representing them where they are. And they have to feel like it matters.
Yeah.
And us, again, and us just nagging at them. You mentioned with the polling issues and things like that. There needs to be more, I feel like, on our end, and I try to educate as best as I can as far as what are the how we can make sure that voters can have all the avenues to be able to vote like they can, because it was already tough to begin with. Now they're putting this other stuff in place to where it's going to be even more difficult, and we don't want to blame people if circumstances have changed to where now, okay, well, someone who had an easier time just being able to go down the street, now they can't. So, and remember, people are still living their lives too, so we can't just say, well, how dare you not
Yeah.
just take off from your job and do this. We got to say, okay, let's continue to stay, keep our free. And I feel like as candidates, we have a responsibility to do that more so, because we're dedicating our time to this. Whereas, the everyday American just doesn't have that, capacity. They're working, they're trying to make sure, their families are taken care of. So I think we owe that to them.
Yeah, and I think just the appearance of accountability. Too often, people are like they're results oriented. Well, what's the point of even doing this if there's no chance of success? But I think you
Yeah.
need to live by integrity. Even if you don't necessarily get everything you need from it, you just live by integrity because that's the way to live. And I think just the appearance of the Democratic establishment showing they're going to show up for voters and make sure those are investigate, and if any wrongdoing is found, and a lot of it is, if it's just some a clerk in a district that's only got 5 people, that
Hmm.
we find it, because if you find it, that stops other people, that sends a message that if
Yeah.
there is and it just feels like the Democrats surrender too often for the sake of appearances
Yeah.
when they should be going out and defending us. I mean, you looked at what happened in Dallas. There was all this confusion, in Jasmine Crockett's district,
Hmm.
where they just had redistricted everything. People didn't know where to go,
Hmm.
and it bothers me when this Democratic establishment kind of puts their finger on the scale of these primaries
Hmm.
instead of allowing the districts themselves to choose the people. And you see something like that happen, and you say, okay, that happened in the primary, and the Democratic establishment isn't mad because they got the candidate they preferred.
Yeah.
But those issues are going to remain in the
Hmm.
in the general. And so what always happens is then they alienate half their base, and then when they lose in the general, they turn around and blame,
Then
and it's
the.
usually the Black community that gets blamed in these kind of situations, and they are the ones who are least likely to have their voting rights protected. So
Hmm.
I guess like, if you want to answer that or have
It's
thoughts.
yeah, it's gatekeeping. That's another thing, and I'm glad I've been meaning to bring that up too. Gatekeeping. There's too much gatekeeping happening. Where, as you said, the establishment Democrats are trying to handpick who is wherever. And when we're also talking about protecting democracy and protecting the Constitution. That's
Yeah.
part of it. People may not like that there are a lot of when there are multiple candidates in the primary, or they may feel that one may be more electable over another for whatever reason.
Yeah, that
But
word
yeah, 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 yeah.
makes
But
me mad. Yeah, but go ahead.
when you, oh yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's why I did videos about that and everything too. But yeah, when we have, if that's what we're trying to do, that means we have to make sure we're not trying to, the powers that be on our Democrat on the Democratic side. And I don't mind calling these people out because I think, I don't know if they might not support me anyway because of being a progressive and so forth. But that's part of accountability, is not being afraid of that.
Yeah.
So we can't do that and expect to see anything different, any different results. So when yeah, and there's so much of that happening. Handpicked candidates, and then these candidates may not even win. So if they handpick the candidate, it doesn't win, you said it, we end up turning around and blaming the same voters that we alienated. And we're doing the same thing in definition of insanity. That's what it really comes down to. We're doing the same
Yes.
thing, expecting something different to happen.
Yep, and I always say the voters came out.
Mm.
They gave the Democrats all the power they needed in 2020. They had the House,
Hmm.
they had the Senate, they had the presidency. They could have stopped all this, and so that's kind of where I've pivoted. Where I'm just like,
Yeah.
we got to do something different going forward. And I guess that
Hmm.
brings me to I want to talk about rule of law a little bit, and I just it frustrates me to have a president who, in my opinion, he does on a good day, it's only 10 or so impeachable offenses, and it becomes and it's like he's as an insurrectionist he's not supposed to be in that office. I mean, our
Right.
court determined him as that, and it's just like just the laying down and letting him roll over us, and that, I mean, these atrocities, they're piling up, and I don't know, where does this end? Does it end with bombs being dropped? I mean, we've already deployed paramilitary forces to places like Minneapolis where people are shot in the street. Are we going to have U.S. cities being bombed? I think that's
Mm.
a reasonable question to ask, because I don't see anything in place right now that seems like it would stop him if he proposed something like that. But your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, there's no guardrails. And especially when we don't have it's worse, I feel like, when we don't have, those on our side standing up. There shouldn't be only a handful that where, who we see, consistently speaking up, being unapologetically speaking up candidly about what this administration is doing. And again, you can count on one hand how many how many Democrats are making their voices heard with this. But yeah, that's very valid. There's nothing, one thing I always say is there should be a point, especially when you're talking about our president, where we can say, "Oh, he would never do this," and we can't even say that now. We're in a place where when something comes out, I'm less surprised, more angry. And it's like that's why we have to get rid of, we have to impeach, we have to convict, we have to remove. That's as simple as that. We can't, play this game of, oh, maybe this isn't the right time. So when's the right time then? What does bottom look like? That's what I go to. What does bottom look like if now isn't it? And for those who say, well, this we tried it twice and it didn't work. Well, were the same things happening before? Are we not further along now than in the first administration? If somebody, and I make this as simple as possible, someone, let's say someone breaks into your car at one point, you press charges, it doesn't go through for whatever reason. Okay, the second time they break into your car, drive it across town, you press charges, nothing happens. Now this time they blow your car up, they break into your house. Are you going to not bother because hey, I tried this twice? No, you're going to say, wait a minute, all this extra stuff is in here. No, we're going to keep doing it because there's something different. So we can't keep looking at the first two times and saying it won't be successful this time because of that. Not only that, but the Republican support also was there more now than it is. It's shaky at this point because people are, these representatives, again, as I spoke earlier, they're resigning, they're not running for reelection. Some are are pushing back more than what we're seeing. Not as much as we need, but we're getting that. So it's not acceptable to just not do it. So I'm always for impeaching, convicting, and removing everybody. Not only that, but and again with the convicting, removing, and convicting, because they can't just. It's not. We shouldn't just let them fade off into the sunset either. They need to be held accountable for everything we're seeing now.
Absolutely. And I mean, the topic of where's the bottom at, and I don't know, there's some wonderful creators here on Substack who have been diligent about going through the Epstein files, and there's just
Oh,
horrors beyond anything you can imagine is in there.
yeah.
And I guess I'm just baffled by this. How can anybody in any political party turn a blind eye to that? And so many of the Republicans, they haven't arrested one person. I mean, you look at those files, and I'm not a lawyer myself, but some of the things you read in there, it's like this is pretty actionable to at least have some conversations, to be hauling some people in. They've
Yeah.
done nothing, and again, my kids, I don't feel my kids are safe. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me, I guess. And this is just such an unprecedented time. 5 years ago, all this, I would have thought this was tinfoil hat territory, but we've
Mhm.
seen the
Mm.
files now.
Yeah.
So, some thoughts on that?
Well, frankly, a lot aren't pushing back because they're a lot more connected than they want to admit. And that's on the Democratic side too. And of course, I don't have evidence specifically about whose, but nothing else explains why there's so much silence when it comes to, on both sides really, but why there's not more pushback than we're seeing. And yes, you're right for to feel that your kids aren't safe. Anyone with children feel, because what are the penalties? What are the punishments? What for these actions to happen. I mean, we see even with, let's say, if you're a fan or if you've ever watched To Catch a Predator, some those shows, or any type of predator catching programs,
Mhm.
on YouTube or what have you. What's the punishment when someone's gotten caught red-handed? It's often they don't see jail time, probation, maybe a little bit. There's nothing that to deter anybody from stopping what's happening. Not to mention just because Epstein's not here, is this whole thing not still going on in some fashion somewhere else? Of course it is. But where's the deterrence? Where's the any sense of you know accountability for this? And it's I was baffled too when some of that stuff came back. And you're right. Yeah, I would have thought the same thing seeing some of it. It's like, no, this can't be. No, there's no way
Mhm.
this is really happening. And it is. And it is. And it's sickening to say the least.
I want to pivot and hopefully try to get a little bit more positive. But I mean, it's hard. But thank you, sir. I thank you again
It's
for
tough.
just for being here and having this time. And the people have had lovely comments in the chat here I've glanced over. One of my big concerns too is education, and the way I look at things is a lot of why we're in this problem now is that we kind of have allowed history to be taught, like US history to be taught as if it's the redacted Epstein files, all the crimes of American history. We
Yeah.
hide it. It's like if we have to hide the actions of these people, maybe they are not worthy of reverence. Is maybe what we need to start getting to. And I often say, I was talking with Lisa Hamline of Texas Democrats, and she said it's the
Mhm.
down ballot stuff. It's the school board members and
Yeah.
all those other things, all those. And there's so many positions in government that really don't pay a lot, and it feels like the right has all this money to make sure they can put people into those positions. And we
Mhm.
see that in the messaging. They have hundreds of millions to throw at people like Joe Rogan, but there's
Mhm.
absolutely no response from the left. I don't. Maybe we can appeal. I mean, there's been plenty of Democrats who have done very well in their stock portfolios because of
Uh,
insider trading. Maybe we could appeal to them. People like Nancy Pelosi, rather than asking for money from me. Maybe she should give to your campaign and she could support my newsletter.
I would not object to that at all. So you're on the right track with that one. Mhm.
But I want to talk about your thoughts on education and what we can do better there.
We had one thing. One of the units I worked in the army was a history detachment unit, and I did not know. really what that was about, as far as what historians, what their involvement is, as far as our, our country, and some of what, what they're responsible for, and so on. So one thing I say, and I'm confident about, and hopefully this gives, some type of, reassurance to, anyone listening, or, the public in general, is that historians, I feel like they take their job seriously, and they're the ones who will give it to, will protect it, unfiltered. They won't redact, hide any of it, because that's part of their job. That's something that they're very serious about. And we see, these videos going around about things that have happened in the past, that they're trying to erase. And I feel like they're our saving grace, as far as once we get this administration impeached, convicted, and removed, and it's time to start restoring a lot of this. They'll be the ones, I feel like, to step up and say, hey, we kept up, we have all the information, we can, the
Yeah.
Smithsonian, things like that, getting that all back on track. As far as education goes, it's pretty bad here, as far as, the involvement from the state legislatures and so forth. And I'm pretty sure it's bad in other areas as well. We need to. There's a lot of reform we have to do there, and it starts with, I will always support, not. Not whitewashing history. Let's just call it that.
Yep.
Whitewashing history. There's so much, other things. But like what my mother always told me, if you have to hide it, or if you have to lie about it, maybe it's something you shouldn't be doing. And if we have to do that with history, then obviously there's something there. So, but there's so much, as far as, education. We really want to give, too much also. And I'm sorry, I almost forgot this part. Private schools, a
Yeah.
lot of money
Oh
is
yeah.
being taken from public schools to private schools, and so forth. And again, that's one of those both sides issues. It's not only, Republicans are not the only ones who benefit from this. Some Democrats are as well. And that's what leaves public schools, hurting the way they are. That's why it's so easy for us to see what we're seeing there. So we really need to be pushing back and stopping that also.
Excellent. Well, we got about 7 minutes left. Uh, Start thinking some closing thoughts, but I don't know. I've been so confused. This whole last year has just been one thing after another. It's like putting
Yeah.
fires out all the time.
Mhm.
How do you see things happening in the next couple months? I mean, your best prediction.
Ooh,
Yeah,
oh
I
my
know.
goodness. Oh man. It'll be interesting to say that. Every day I say that, I say it's going to be an interesting next few months. So, um, one day at a time. One day at a time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to make light of this, but it's no telling at this stage where things are going to go, because at this point, again, they're getting desperate. They're going to try anything to see what sticks. And one thing I would say to encourage the American people, hopefully, is to try not, as much as we can, try not to get too up or too down when we see something, because we know what they come out and they show us. They're going to put that face on that. Oh yeah, we got this under control. We're not worried. But behind the scenes, they probably are. Not probably are. They are. They're definitely worried. They're panicking. We see the decisions they're making that don't have much substance to them, don't have, purpose,
Mhm.
and we just have to try not to worry too much. Not say worry, but
Overreact or
I would say yes, overreacting. I want to definitely be respectful of, where people are, because a lot of folks are fearful, like you said, like,
panic maybe is more.
or panic, probably, yeah, because a lot of folks are where you are, especially with, communities like the immigrant community. I want to say, hey, don't panic. I don't wake up the same as an immigrant does
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
I have my own, as a black man, I have my own, issues that I have to be concerned with. Women have issues they have to be concerned with. So I want to definitely be respectful of that, and not say, well, don't panic, because this is all day every day that, these folks have to live. But just keep in mind, when they're panicking, as they're trying
Yeah.
to get the midterms and hold on to
Yes.
that, and they know it's slipping away, they're going to try everything. They're not going to go away quietly. So let's sort of strap in, get
Yes.
get ready for this. And also, let's bring in those who have sort of given up.
Yes.
Not, let not be an echo chamber to those who are already with us. Let's try to sort of, understand. Let's reach out to the ones we know who have voted, who have given up, and have conversation with them and say, yeah, I feel where you are, but you know what? Let's look at how things are going. We're going to make this happen, but we still need some help in getting this, but we'll do it. We'll definitely do it.
Very well said. And I have a couple comments. Robert Dana, he says, uh, he mentions PragerU in Florida. I mean, you're getting to the point where public education, it's becoming more like this indoctrination of extreme things.
Yeah.
So that's something to talk about. And then Robert also just says, like, you look like a great candidate. And have you chatted with Vote Vets or Leaders We Deserve?
I have not heard back from Vote. But I want to say, Leaders We Deserve. I'm trying to remember because I know we've applied to so many endorsements right
Mhm.
now for. So I believe we may have, but nothing is stone yet. As far as endorsements, we have not from either of those organizations at this time.
Okay. Well, it's ongoing. I
Mhm.
appreciate you so much for being on here. I'll give you a few more minutes or a minute to make a closing statement, but I just want to say just thank you. Thank you for
Mm,
coming on and talking to me and giving people an opportunity to express our concerns, with somebody who is running to have the power to do something about it. And
mm,
whether it's, in Congress and then it's on the debate stage, all these and just talking about people in the two people in the districts,
mhm,
that's super, super important. So what you do, I applaud you. Going forward, anything you need, I can put you in touch with some other creators for some more conversations
mm.
because I think we just really need to fight this messaging battle.
Yes.
And the Democrats have surrendered it too much. And the more we can just get messages out there that are positive messages, that's great. I'll share your webpage again, but go ahead and offer your closing comments. And again, thank you.
Well, thank you, Walter, for giving me the platform to be able to speak about this. This is part of what helps as well because as a grassroots candidate, a people focused candidate, the money, of course, the money's not there as it is for the more establishment candidates and such. So getting the message out is going to be a little more tougher, but obviously it'll be more organic as well. But again, I embrace that because that also lets people know that I am people
Mhm.
focused. I don't want corporate dollars. I saw APAC was mentioned. I have no plans to take APAC. I don't want to send. I will always vote against sending arms further to Israel. That's on my website. That's on my socials. I don't want APAC to even reach out to me because the answers are going to be no. Yesterday, today, and always. So and again, when that happens, you lose some support from the money folks, but that's okay because I work for the people. The people are the ones who vote for me, not the money. So it's going to take a little bit more, but the people are worth it. And I didn't do 21 years in the army just to roll over at the first at the first sign of trouble. So that's where I am. And for the people watching this, please hang in there. There are people, who want to stand up, who want to fight, and we're not going to go away quietly either.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much. And people are just saying thank you and they're giving you a lot of hearts and love. So
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, much love to you, sir. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the good fight. And again, it's peopleforcongress.com. Find out more about Robert. And yeah, keep checking in. Tell us how the campaign goes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you to everybody
All
in
right.
the chat. And we'll see you on the next time around.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.